I was standing by the kitchen window when the message arrived. 9 words that sliced through me with the precision of a scalpel. We're keeping it small this year. Only your sister's family. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen, the glow of it washing over my hands like a cold slap. I'm 32 years old, yet somehow those 9 words dragged me backward through time, straight into every Christmas where I sat at the folding table in the hallway while my sister Haley basked under the chandelier with the adults. If there was ever a point where family stopped meaning safety for me, maybe this was it. I didn't text back. What was I supposed to say? Thanks for excluding me again? I hope your tiny Christmas is perfect without the daughter you keep forgetting exists. No, not this time. I set my phone face down on the counter like I was sealing a coffin. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear the throb in my ears. Somewhere outside, December wind scraped against the cabin windows in Aspen Ridge, a sharp, needling sound that matched the pressure building behind my ribs. I wasn't going to cry, not this year. Instead, I crossed the room, opened my laptop, typed a long memorized password, then another, then a third. A hidden drive unlocked with a soft chime. A single folder waited inside it, labeled Frost Lake. Click. Photos of a sprawling glass and stone lodge filled the screen. My lodge. Frost Lake Haven, a $7 million ranch tucked deep between 2 ridges of the Absaroka Mountains, surrounded by pines that looked like soldiers guarding a secret. No one in my family knew it existed. I bought it outright 2 years ago, the first major purchase after selling my company. Sometimes I wondered whether I bought it out of joy or grief. A place no one could take from me. A place no one could shut the door on. I scrolled through the photos, sunlight pouring through high windows, the stone fireplace taller than a person, the long walnut table stretching almost 40 feet across the great hall. 28 chairs, no head of the table, no hierarchy, no favorites. Standing there, staring at that image, something inside me clicked into place. Clean, sharp, certain. If my family was going to erase me from their holiday table again, then fine. Let them. But I wasn't going to sit here alone, pretending it didn't hurt. I whispered to the empty cabin, then I'll build my own table. And I knew exactly who I wanted sitting at it. I grabbed my phone again, not to respond to my mother, but to open a group chat I had created months ago but never used. Outer Circle. A sad little name, but an honest one. Inside were 13 people, cousins who always got tasked with washing dishes, a neighbor who hadn't been invited to her sister's Christmas since 2015, a former coworker who spent every holiday alone because her family lived across the country and never called. All of us had been extras in someone else's celebration. This year, maybe we didn't have to be. My fingers flew across the screen before I could overthink it. Hi everyone, I know this is sudden, but I'm hosting a Christmas dinner at my place in Montana. Real dinner, real fire, real warmth. If you've ever felt pushed out or forgotten, you have a seat here. One rule, bring a story about a time you were left out, so we can build a new kind of holiday together. I hovered over the send button. For 1 second, guilt flickered, like I was betraying some unwritten family rule. But then I remembered the message my mother had sent. We're keeping it small. As if shrinking the celebration meant my existence was negotiable. I hit send. The message whooshed out into the cold Montana night, and instantly 3 dots appeared. Then another. Then my screen lit up like a constellation. Oh my God, Abigail, are you serious? Montana? For real? I haven't had a Christmas invitation in 4 years. Yes, I'm coming. Tell me what to bring and what to wear. I felt something warm rise in my chest, something I hadn't felt for a long time. Hope, maybe, or the beginning of belonging. I turned back to my laptop, enlarging the image of the walnut table in Frost Lake Haven. It looked almost ceremonial, the way the wood shimmered under the soft light. 28 chairs, but I could add more. I could always add more. A knock of wind rattled the window pane again. Outside, Aspen Ridge glowed under a heavy sweep of snow, the kind that muted sound and sharpened thought. I imagined that table filled with people laughing, talking, breathing warmth into the cold. People who knew what it felt like to be dismissed. People who would understand me without needing a biography. For the first time all day, my shoulders dropped. Maybe I didn't need my family's table anymore. Maybe I never did. As I shut the laptop, a pulse of adrenaline shot through me. Not fear, but something electric. Anticipation. A sense that this wasn't just dinner. It was a turning point. A line drawn in clean white snow. This year, Christmas would be different. This year, I would not be the forgotten one. This year, I would build a table where every single person belonged, including me. If you asked anyone in my family to describe my childhood, they'd probably paint a picture so polished it could hang in a hallway. 2 well-behaved daughters, a warm Ohio home, parents who did their best, and holidays that sparkled like a postcard. But memories are funny things. They don't lie to the person who actually lived them. In Dayton, Haley was the one everyone saw. She didn't even have to try. She walked into a room and the air rearranged itself around her. My mother used to say she lit up the house. I used to joke that if Haley was the sun, then I was the light bulb in the hallway. But the truth behind that joke hurt more than I ever admitted. Because in our house, no one looks at a hallway light unless it flickers or dies. I remember the first time I was sent to the kids' table. I was 9. Haley was 11. The adults were laughing, clinking glasses, passing around stories I wasn't allowed to hear. My chair squeaked when I sat on it. The tablecloth didn't reach the floor. Someone forgot to give me a fork. I held back tears over a plate of dry turkey. But the thing about being excluded is that it teaches you how to disappear in plain sight. And I got good at it, too good. When I won the regional science fair at 15, I genuinely believed things would change. My project, an early traffic flow simulation I coded on a clunky secondhand laptop, earned first place, a scholarship, and a feature in the local paper. I brought the medal home, still warm from my hand, expecting someone to say, "We're proud of you." Instead, I walked into the dining room and found my family gushing over Haley's latest achievement. She'd been crowned homecoming queen that night. I stood there holding my medal while my parents passed her tiara around the table like it was a newborn baby. No one even asked how the competition went. I slipped the medal into my pocket and excused myself. Haley followed me to the hallway, confused when she saw my face. "Abby, come back. They're just excited." "Yeah," I'd whispered. "Excited about the right daughter." She looked stunned. Maybe she didn't realize it. Maybe she did. Either way, that was the moment I understood that waiting for a seat at their table was pointless. Nothing I did, no matter how remarkable, would ever shine brighter than her crown. So I stopped trying. When college applications opened, I chose Midwest Tech, 6 hours away. My mother cried the day I left, but not because I was going far. She said, "Why don't you choose something closer? You know Haley likes having you around." As if my entire life existed to orbit hers. At Midwest Tech, I found something I'd never had before: silence. Not the cold kind, but the freeing kind. I stayed on campus during Thanksgiving, Christmas, spring break, anytime the dorms allowed residents to remain. While everyone else went home to warmth and noise, I sat in the computer lab from morning until midnight, letting the hum of servers drown out the memories that tried to drag me back. It was during one of those quiet winters that the seed for ember root relief took root. News footage flickered on the lab television. The wildfires out west, aid trucks stuck in gridlock, emergency supplies arriving days too late. It made me sick. Not just the devastation, but the inefficiency, the chaos, the lack of coordination that cost lives. I closed my laptop, opened a new file, and began building something that made sense. A dynamic routing algorithm, a real-time tracking lattice, a system that could pivot instantly during a disaster. I didn't know it yet, but Ember Root Relief was being born in that cold, fluorescent room. 5 years later, when firestorms and hurricanes forced the nation into triage, Ember Root became the backbone of dozens of relief operations. Reporters wanted to interview me. Investors wanted meetings. FEMA kept calling. Meanwhile, my family's response to the biggest achievement of my life was a single text from my mother. "That's nice, honey. Haley is starting a lifestyle blog." I should have laughed. Instead, I stared at the message until it blurred. When the Seattle conglomerate offered $180 million to acquire Ember Root, I didn't hesitate. I accepted, flew to Washington, shook hands under studio lights, and walked away with enough capital to carve my own place into the world. Not the place they thought I deserved. Something better. Something built on quiet resilience instead of applause. With part of my earnings, I created the Frost Lake Community Fund, a grant program supporting overlooked frontline workers and small-town emergency responders. With another portion, I bought Frost Lake Haven, a place so remote and so breathtakingly still that for the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe without permission. The long walnut table arrived a month later, custom-built from a workshop in Oregon. When they delivered it, one of the carpenters asked, "You want a head seat?" I shook my head. No head seat, Everyone sits equal here." He raised an eyebrow but nodded. That table became more than furniture. It became a promise, a symbol, a declaration that someday, somehow, I would build a world where no one had to sit at the folding table in the hallway, unless they chose to. I didn't know it then, but that table was waiting for something bigger, something that would change everything. All it needed was the right people, the right moment, and the right spark. I guess that spark was about to arrive. By the time Nora Bell arrived from Seattle, with her hair tied back in a silver knot and her voice booming through the snowy entrance hall, I felt something inside me settle. Nora didn't just cook, she commanded. Within minutes, she had my kitchen steaming with rosemary, garlic, star anise, and the slow, rich perfume of duck roasting under citrus glaze. "Abigail, hand me that copper pot," she barked, not even turning around. I laughed as I passed it to her. "You act like you've lived here for years." "Good kitchens belong to the bold," she said, tapping my wrist lightly. "Tonight we feed the hearts, not just the stomachs." Meanwhile, Lucas climbed a ladder in the great hall, stringing warm vintage lights between the beams. I sliced dried oranges and tucked them into wreaths of pine and cedar, securing beeswax candles along the length of the walnut table. Warmth seeped into the room in a way that felt almost enchanted, the kind of Christmas glow I used to watch through the doorway of other people's homes. I wasn't prepared for how beautiful it would look lit up. "Abby," Lucas called from the ladder. "It feels like the house is breathing." I looked around, at the shimmering table, the elegant place cards I wrote one by one, the hum of Nora's kitchen. For the first time, Frost Lake Haven didn't feel like a fortress built to keep the world out. It felt like a home waiting for people to walk into it. Our guests arrived through the snow in a slow procession. 12, 15, nearly 20 people. People who had been forgotten, overlooked, or pushed aside in ways they carried quietly on their faces. A widowed librarian, a cousin who always showed up early to help set the table but never stayed for dessert. A teacher who told me she hadn't had a holiday invitation in 8 years. Every person paused when they saw the table. I watched their steps falter, their eyes soften, their shoulders ease. I guided them to their seats. "Here," I said, touching each card gently. "Tonight, we sit as equals." Dinner was nothing short of extraordinary. Nora's duck fell apart at the touch of a fork. The braised short ribs melted like butter. Conversations bloomed slowly at first, then gained warmth, like the room itself was thawing. Stories rose and drifted across the table. A Christmas spent alone after a divorce, a year when no one noticed a birthday, a childhood of always being sent to the kids' room. At one point, a soft-spoken woman named Jamie wiped her eyes and said, "I didn't realize how heavy it felt until I finally put it down by saying it out loud." I knew exactly what she meant. Near the end of dessert, with the smell of spiced apple tart still hanging in the air, someone shouted from the far end of the table, "Group photo! We have to remember tonight!" I hesitated. The idea of sharing myself, even in a small way, still pressed against old wounds. But the joy in the room overpowered my fear. For once, I wanted to be part of the picture, not behind it. "Okay," I said. "One photo, but we keep it in the group. No posting." Everyone agreed. We squeezed in around the table, cheeks flushed from warmth and wine. Lucas held the phone high and snapped it. The flash washed over us like a blessing. I didn't know that flash was also a warning. 30 minutes after the last guest left, my phone exploded with notifications. Dozens, then hundreds. I frowned, assuming someone had accidentally replied all in the chat. But when I opened my screen, my stomach dropped. There it was, the group photo, posted publicly by my great-aunt Celeste, the eccentric watercolor painter who barely knew how to use Instagram. Caption: "A magical evening with my wonderful niece," my full name, my face, the inside of Frost Lake Haven. And within seconds, people were sharing it, commenting, tagging. Before I could process the panic clawing up my throat, my phone lit up again, this time with the name I least wanted to see. "Mom!" I answered on instinct. "Abigail, what is this?" Her voice was sharp enough to slice tile. "Are you showing off? Pretending you're some kind of Rockefeller while we're keeping things simple?" I swallowed. "It was just a dinner, Mom, for people who needed..." "Needed what?" she snapped. "To make your father and me look like fools? To embarrass this family?" Then my father's voice boomed in the background. "Tell her she's making us look terrible online." My pulse thudded. "You didn't invite me, remember? How is my dinner embarrassing for you?" But before either could answer, another call broke through. An unfamiliar number from Columbus. Voicemail. Then another. Then a third. The fourth call displayed a name that froze my spine. Arthur Vance, attorney for Evelyn Hart, my grandmother's lawyer. I stepped outside into the cold, letting snow bite my cheeks as I answered. Arthur's voice was low, weighted. Abigail, I'm afraid there's something you need to know. It concerns your parents and the Hartwell Family Foundation. What about it? I whispered. The heating assistance program hasn't issued a single payment in 2 years, but the administrative fees, they're draining the account. The wind roared in my ears. Administrative fees? I pressed. Shell companies, consulting payments, decorations, thousands of dollars, all billed to the foundation. He paused. And I'm sending you an email with proof, including a $5,000 invoice for Christmas decor shipped to your parents' home and paid entirely with charity funds. My breath vanished. Suddenly, Mom's text made perfect sense. We're keeping it small this year, small enough for no one to notice what they'd been hiding, small enough to bury a crime, small enough to erase me. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one who felt small. Not anymore. The morning after Arthur's call, I woke with the kind of clarity that feels like shock freezing into purpose. My hands shook a little as I opened my laptop and pulled up the Montana recording laws. One-party consent. Legal. I installed an encrypted recording app on my phone and tested it. The soft chime that confirmed it was running felt like armor sliding into place. By noon, I had drafted the summons for an emergency board meeting of the Hartwell Family Foundation, held not in Columbus, not in a corporate office, but at Frost Lake Haven. My table, my battlefield. When Arthur and Bishop arrived that afternoon, snow was blowing sideways across the valley. They stomped their boots clean at the door, exhaling plumes of cold air as they stepped inside. Arthur shook my hand. You're doing the right thing. Bishop adjusted his glasses. But be warned, Abigail, when people build their identity on appearances, they fight hardest when those appearances crack. I'm counting on it, I said. Upstairs, my grandmother Evelyn was waiting in the guest suite, wrapped in a wool shawl, her hair pinned with the same silver comb she'd worn at every holiday I'd ever been excluded from. Her eyes remained focused on the printout in her lap, the financial records Arthur had brought. I knelt beside her. I'm sorry, Grandma. I didn't want you to see it this way. She tapped a wrinkled finger against the damning numbers. My name is on that foundation. Your mother and father used it to polish their lives, not heat the homes of the elderly. No, her voice hardened. I will sit at that table tonight. They will look me in the eye. For a moment, I saw the Evelyn Hart I had forgotten existed. The woman who founded community food drives in the 70s, who paid for 3 cousins to go to college, who fought City Hall when the nursing home tried to cut down its heating budget. Fire returned to her gaze, sharp and bright. Build the room, she said, and don't soften anything. By evening, the great hall at Frost Lake Haven no longer resembled the warm sanctuary from the night before. The walnut table was stripped bare, except for a row of conference microphones, a stack of printed exhibits, and the projector Arthur set up at the far end. The lights were cooler now. No candles, no oranges, no warmth. Just truth waiting to be spoken. It felt like the table had transformed into a courtroom bench, long, unyielding, and unmistakably final. When my parents and Haley's SUV rolled up the drive, the gravel crunch echoed loud enough to set my teeth on edge. I caught my reflection in the window, steady, composed, a woman I didn't quite recognize, a woman I wanted to become. They entered without knocking. My mother froze first. Her eyes locked on the projector, then the microphones, then the solemn face of Evelyn Hart seated at the center of the table. Mother? She whispered, thrown completely off balance. My grandmother folded her hands. Take your seats, all of you, my father bristled. Evelyn, what is this? Some kind of… Sit, she said, with a command so cold the room tilted. They obeyed. I stood at the opposite end of the table, next to the screen where the first slide glowed. $0 dispersed, 24 months. Tonight, I began, we are reviewing the operational integrity of the Hartwell Family Foundation. As board members, you are required to participate honestly. My father scoffed. This is ridiculous. Arthur's voice cut in. Leonard, your personal LLCs have received $170,000 in combined administrative and consulting fees during a period where the foundation granted nothing to its beneficiaries. My mother's face blanched. We just followed the structure. Let's look at the structure, I said, clicking to the next slide. A bar graph shot up on screen showing monthly management fees of $5 every month, paired with consulting fees of $2,500 funneling directly into their shell companies. Then, a single glaring line item appeared beneath. Holiday decor expense, $5,000. Shipping address, Leonard and Diane Mercer residence. Haley's jaw dropped. Mom, Dad, that came from the charity? My father slammed his palm on the table. Stop twisting things! The foundation didn't have enough applicants. The funds had to be held. Bishop cleared his throat. According to the bylaws, administrative fees must not exceed 4% of total disbursements. He paused. 4% of 0 is 0. The silence that followed was suffocating. My mother shook her head frantically. You don't understand. We were going to fix it. We were going to catch up. I lifted my phone and tapped the encrypted app. Let's add context. Her own voice filled the hall, sharp and unmistakable. Don't make us look bad, Abigail. Don't embarrass this family. My mother gasped as though the air had been punched from her lungs. My father shot out of his chair, pointing at Arthur. You can't do this! But before he reached the end of the table, my phone buzzed with a call from the bank. The speaker echoed through the room. A calm voice said, This is to inform all board members that the Hartwell Family Foundation accounts have been temporarily frozen pending investigation. Outstanding debts and liabilities may require liquidation of personal collateral. My parents went still. Everything they built, the facade, the status, the curated image, cracked down the middle, and they knew I wasn't the one who broke it. The table simply revealed what was already rotten. For the first time in my life, they couldn't talk over me, couldn't minimize me, couldn't shrink me into the hallway. At Frost Lake Haven, the table I built became the place where truth finally sat, and they could not stand against it. When the bank's call ended, no one spoke. The hall was so quiet, I could hear the slow crackle of the fireplace behind me, the only warm sound in a room where everything else had frozen. My parents stared down at the table like it was an open grave. Maybe in a way it was, the grave of the life they had built on polished lies. I took a breath, a steady one, the kind I had practiced 1,000 times in the mirror, preparing for the day I would finally stop shrinking. I'm offering you a path forward, I said, not to save face, to repair the harm. My father's head snapped up. A path forward? After what you've done? What I have done, I repeated quietly, is open the blinds on a window you spent 2 years nailing shut. I slid a document across the table. These are my terms. My mother's voice trembled. Abigail, please, don't do this. I'm not destroying the family, I said softly. I'm asking you to stop destroying what Grandma built. I tapped the first line. 1. You will return 100% of the misappropriated funds to the Hartwell Foundation, including interest. Every cent goes back to the community. My father's jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. 2, I continued. You will issue a public apology at St. Mark's Church. The community that trusted you deserves to hear your admission from your own mouths. No PR script, no evasions. Haley let out a soft cry, but I kept going. 3. Effective immediately, you will cede full management of the foundation to an independent board. You will not hold voting rights, advisory roles, or ceremonial positions. This is not punishment. It's protection. Before they could react, a faint but unmistakable voice came from the center of the table. And 4, my grandmother said, lifting her chin, Abigail will join the board as the Transparency Commissioner, unpaid, uncompromised, unafraid. I turned to her, startled. Grandma! She squeezed my hand. You built the table that brought the truth here. Now you will guard it. My parents exchanged a desperate look, the kind I had never seen on them, fear mixed with recognition that every escape route had vanished. They weren't the powerful figures they pretended to be. Not here, not tonight, not at this table. Arthur placed the pen between them. If you refuse, the state will pursue fraud charges. The freeze on your accounts will remain. Your property will be evaluated as collateral. My father's breath broke. My mother covered her mouth. And then, slowly, trembling, they signed. When the last signature dried, it felt like the house itself exhaled. The battle was over. The reckoning was done. But the healing, my healing, was only beginning. Haley stood abruptly, tears streaking her cheeks. Abby, I'm sorry. I should have seen it. I should have defended you. I'm so sorry. It startled me, the sincerity in her voice, the shame in her eyes. For the first time, she wasn't speaking as the family's golden daughter. She was just a sister realizing she had cast a shadow she never meant to. I nodded once, not rejecting her, but not offering absolution I hadn't processed yet. Some restorations take time. Word spread faster than I expected. By morning, reporters were emailing requests for interviews about the Frost Lake Haven Christmas dinner. They wanted photos, quotes, sound bites about a mysterious ranch in Montana where a forgotten daughter built her own holiday table. I declined each one. This isn't a story about me, I told them. Cover the foundation, cover the heating program, cover the seniors who almost froze because the money never reached them. Some pushed back. I didn't budge. Later that afternoon, my phone rang with a number from Ohio. I recognized the church. "Ms. Mercer," the pastor said, his voice warm. "I've heard about what happened. The truth you brought forward saved lives. And your idea, the long table, it touched me. Would you consider helping us host a community night? We want to call it One Table Evening, a place where no one sits alone." My throat tightened. "Yes," I whispered. "I would love that." He chuckled softly. I had a feeling. That night, when Frost Lake Haven finally fell quiet, I walked back into the great hall. The table stood there, empty now, but still glowing faintly with a memory of what it had held. A battlefield, a courtroom, a sanctuary, a beginning. I opened the storage cabinet and pulled out the 2 extension panels I had commissioned months ago, back when this table was only a private dream. I slid them into place until the walnut stretched nearly 50 feet end to end. More seats, more stories, more people who would never again be left at the edge of the room. On the center line, I placed the block of carved oak I had ordered without knowing why. Now I understood. "You belong here." 3 words, 1 promise. My phone buzzed softly. For the first time in years, the sound didn't make my stomach clench. Every notification felt like a door swinging open instead of another closing. For once, everything was pointing towards something right, towards something new, toward a life built not on exclusion, but on invitation. If you listened from beginning to end, tell me, did this story move you? Would you like more stories like this, or something completely different? Comment below what themes you want me to explore next. And if you enjoyed Abigail's journey, make sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next story from another woman finding her voice in a world that once tried to silence her.